In early June, Mark Carney's government tabled Bill C-2, what they are describing as the Strong Borders Act, after months of pressure from Donald Trump and the US government to take the issues at our border more seriously. A cursory glance at this bill will show that this gives the government new powers to tackle organized crime and drug traffickers. It gives the government more power to deport illegal immigrants, and it gives the government more power to deny certain asylum claims. But when you begin to scratch the surface of this more than 140-page bill, you will find that it gives the government sweeping new surveillance measures on Canadians. For one, it will make it illegal for any Canadian to pay or donate in cash $10,000 or more. It will also break a 150-year-old legal tradition and give Canada Post the right to open and search our mail without a warrant. It will also compel big tech companies to install tracking devices which can be authorized by the authorities in Canada to search and scan your personal data. And arguably the most concerning part of this bill, it will force all online service providers to hand over personal, sensitive subscriber data to the authorities without a warrant. Joining me now to talk more about Bill C-2 is John Carpe, constitutional lawyer and the founder and president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. John, thank you for joining me.
Glad to be with you.
So, on its face, Mark Carney's Strong Borders Bill sounds good. Before you get into the details, cracking down on the border, trying to defeat the fentanyl scourge, and protecting Canadians. But constitutional lawyers like yourself and online privacy experts have been sounding the alarm over what this bill really entails. So what is it that Canadians should be concerned about with Bill C-2?
Well, I would call it the Strong Surveillance Act rather than the Strong Borders Act. There are some provisions that are probably good in Part 7 and 8 about the immigration process and more efficiency and streamlining to deal with refugee claims. And really, the bill should be split up into a half dozen different things to have proper debate on it. But concerns include the criminalization of cash, Canada Post Corporation getting new powers to open mail, inspectors being allowed to inspect goods destined for export anywhere in Canada, not just on the border, warrantless access by government officials to enter into businesses, and increased power for police to demand information, and then obligations on some of the big tech giants to turn over subscriber information to government. So it's massive violations of privacy rights. Left, right, and center is a huge part of the bill, and it's extremely troubling.
On this Canada Post provision being allowed to open up mail, are they going to be allowed to do that without a warrant, or are they going to have to at least receive a judge's approval to do that?
Warrantless searches is the big problem with Bill C-2, and this is huge. And by way of background, the way our criminal justice system has been working imperfectly, but reasonably well the past 158 years, is that the starting point is we have every Canadian citizen has privacy rights so that we're not subject to surveillance. People cannot open our mail. We have private property rights. The police cannot barge into our house, our home, even our car. And the way that we've worked the past 158 years is that if police have reasonable and probable grounds, which is a fairly high standard, reasonable and probable grounds to suspect that, Mark Smith is engaging in criminal activities, they can go to court and get a search warrant to be used on Mark Smith. And if they have a court order, they can look at his emails. They can even barge into his home unannounced and see if he's got child pornography on his computer. Everybody else, privacy rights, property rights are protected. What Bill C-2 does is it really broadens the amount of searching the government can do without a search warrant. And over and over again. The bill is well over 100 pages in length. So it's a big step towards a police state where the police don't need a court approval search warrant to enter your home or to look at what's on your computer.
Bizarre. And so on the criminalizing of cash payments, what's the rationale from the government on this? And is there really a fear that this could be used to eventually bring us closer to banning the use of cash outright in the future?
So the pretext is cracking down on crime, cracking down on money laundering. And so Bill C2, if it passes in current form, it will become illegal to donate $10,000 cash to a charity, will become illegal to make a $10,000 purchase or even a payment of professional services. You could still use 10,000 if you wanted to, if you're give away money, if you were grandparent and you wanted to give $10,000 to a child or a grandchild, you could still do that. Possibly some private purchases, but on the whole, even if it's broken down into smaller amounts. So if you wanted to give $1,000 cash each month to the Justice Center, you'd be committing a criminal act by October if it's broken down into smaller quantities. The danger is, as with so many things, if you accept that it's illegal for citizens to use cash in amounts 10,000 or higher, what's to stop it from becoming 5,000 and then 1,000? And then the next thing you know, the government says, well, you can use up to $100 cash if you're at a garage sale where, the vendor doesn't have a credit card machine, and then down to zero cash. And what if the currency is devalued, right? You're going to have a law on the books that criminalizes cash of 10,000 or more. But if we have some financial crisis, the 10,000 today, that could be worth a small fraction of that. So this is a threat because it leads us closer to central bank digital currency where government controls 100% of the money.
People will hear that and they might say to themselves, central bank digital currency, that sounds kind of pie in the sky conspiracy territory. But what say you to that? Because I've seen reports about it being real and being discussed. But if anyone comes to you and says, well, that's a conspiracy, what do you say to that?
Well, we've got a lengthy report on it on the Justice Center website, www.jccf.ca. There are countries that have already experimented with it. The technology is there. What it means is we don't have hard copy cash, so no bills, no coins, and everything's electronic. And so everything's done by e-transfers. So there is no more money other than electronic numbers in your computer, in the bank's computer, in the store's computer. And this opens up an opportunity for government to control all of the money because they could say, well, if you have exceeded $100 in your fuel purchase, you're allowed to buy fuel up to $100 a month, but not more than that, because we have to all, save ourselves from the climate holocaust. Or if you have posts on social media, which the government deems to be misinformation or hateful, then it's like, well, you can still buy groceries, but you can't fly out an airplane. This is in place currently in communist China. You've got the social credit system. And if you criticize the regime on social media, you will be denied the ability to get onto a train, a plane, a bus, a subway. You cannot travel. This is reality today. So the technology is there to do it in Canada. So not a risk I want to take.
Right. No, I think most Canadians would agree with you there. Now, another part of this bill, which is concerning, and you briefly touched on it, is this lawful access. This idea that it would basically give police and authorities the right to demand sensitive and personal subscriber data from any online service provider without a warrant. Now, surely that's a violation of our charter rights.
Well, it is. Unfortunately, we do have Supreme Court of Canada rulings saying that the citizen has a reasonable expectation of privacy in the subscriber data, right? So if I'm signed up with Rogers or TELUS or whatever for my phone or for my internet, the Supreme Court of Canada has said as a citizen, I have a reasonable expectation of privacy. So that's actually positive in the whole scenario, is that if the Justice Center, or other groups challenge this legislation, we do have strong precedent on file that's very specific to this. But if Bill C2 passes, it would give the police the right to present these information demands where they ask the provider to organize their data in a way that it would be easy to search. And you also have warrantless access through new legislation called Supporting Authorized Access to Information Act. And there, the Minister of Public Safety can demand information from anybody who's an electronic service provider. But electronic service provider is defined so broadly that it's any individual, any business who has a computer is an electronic service provider. And so you've got these people that have warrantless access to go into any business, charity, nonprofit, house of worship, social club, and can demand to see what's on your computer without a warrant. It's that scary.
I read another thing about this bill, and this is now coming from law professor Robert Diab from the Thompson Rivers University. And I want to read this to you and get your thoughts on this, because this was his analysis of the legislation. He says that the bill will also allow, quote, third parties such as ISPs, internet service providers, or platforms like iCloud, Gmail, or Instagram, to be compelled to install equipment to provide authorized persons direct access to stored data and communication. Like, I understand the police want to crack down on drug dealers and bad guys, but this seems frightening. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's also provisions in the legislation to allow the government to, I guess, monitor or listen in on what's going on. Again, it's just frightening. And people, it's sold. It's a very clever thing. I mean, the Strong Borders Act, and then we want to stop money laundering. We want to crack down on crime. But we've got a 158-year-old tradition of respecting the privacy and the property rights of people. And the reason for that is quite simple. In the same way that human nature is a mixture of good and evil, governments are made up of people. You got the elected politicians, you have bureaucrats who are not elected, you have police forces, you've got all these government officials. Government is made up of of people, and so government can do good or evil. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And there's some very naive Canadians who don't know anything about history, and they'll say, well, I'm not doing it. So the government can put up a camera in my living room. I'm hanging out. I'm watching TV. I don't beat my wife. I'm not doing illicit drugs. It's like, yeah, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. What do you think the government's going to do when they can read every email and listen in on every conversation? Do you think they're going to exercise this remarkable self-restraint and not abuse that? We've already seen, the Online Harms Act, where which is likely to be reintroduced, where we're going to risk being put in jail or placed under house arrest with an ankle bracelet on a crime we haven't even committed yet, based on a neighbor fearing that we might say something hateful in future. I mean, governments want to crack down on what they call misinformation or what they call hatred, and if you give them that power, they're gonna turn it against the citizens. So I think that's kind of the backdrop people have to realize is let go of this naive, childish, ignorant of history. Well, I'm not doing anything wrong. I have nothing to hide, so I don't mind if the government puts a listening device on my computer. It's like, do you know nothing of history? Do you know nothing of human nature?
You've made the case that this legislation, if passed as it's written, would open the door for a future government to abuse these powers. But are you concerned that this government, if given these powers they're trying to essentially give themselves, will abuse them?
I'm strongly nonpartisan because human nature is human nature. The Harper government tried a milder version of some of the provisions of Bill C2. And the Justice Minister, I think it was Vic Taves, I'm not sure, but he said to the opposition, either you're with us or you're with the pedophiles. If you don't support this, you're soft on pedophilia. But there were privacy violations in there. And there was a strong public backlash, and the government just quietly, didn't push it forward anymore and just kind of left it on the back burner. So we've seen, conservative governments will violate privacy in the name of stopping terrorism, right? Left-wing governments will violate privacy in the name of stopping hatred and misinformation as defined by them. So the pretext is different, but the core point is, as Lord Acton said, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If there's a problem if police don't have adequate resources to fight crime, then give the police more resources, but make them go to court to get a search warrant. So they can only violate the privacy of somebody where the police have reasonable and probable grounds to suspect that person is engaging in crime, and they get a narrow search warrant for that person or for that criminal gang or that biker gang or that drug gang. It's a narrow search warrant. And so if there's a problem with law enforcement, maybe, I don't know if there is or not, right? Maybe, but the solution is you give the police more resources, maybe more staff, but make the police go to court to get a search warrant.
Right. Now, do you think this bill will pass?
Well, the NDP lost a lot of seats in the last election, and maybe that was because they kept on rubber stamping everything the Liberals put forward. So if you get the NDP and the Bloc and the, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, whatever, Green Party members and the Conservatives, and possibly even, some Liberals that don't show up to vote or vote against it, it's not guaranteed to pass. But really the crucial thing is I would urge Canadians to contact their MP and say, vote against C2. If you vote for C2, I'm going to vote against you, or whatever. Just MPs, most of them are followers, not leaders, and they do pay attention to what their constituents are saying.
Now, when it comes to opposition to this bill, I've seen a lot of opposition work from organizations like yours, the JCCF. I've seen some from online privacy watchdogs. And when it comes to politicians, the loudest opposition voice I've heard has been from the NDP, Jenny Kwan. At a political level, is there sufficient opposition to this, in your opinion, or would you like to see more from politicians to speak out against this?
Well, I'd like to see more, and it would be good if some of the, I would have imagined that the first out of the gates in criticizing this would have been the criminal defense lawyers associations, of which there are several in Canada, national, provincial. These folks have been pretty quiet, which is surprising because they're usually at the forefront of defending privacy rights. I'm glad that the Canadian Civil Liberties Association has spoken out against some of the provisions. We just need a lot more people speaking out against it. And we've got a petition online, the Justice Centre does, and it's doing fairly well. It's generating a lot of signatures, a lot of interest.
Take me through the constitutional process. So if this bill gets passed as it's written, is there a way for groups like yours or other groups to take this to court somehow and to get the court to look at it and potentially strike it down?
Yes, absolutely. As soon as a law is in force, so the process would be first reading, second reading, third reading, and then there's royal assent. And then after royal assent, it's proclaimed into force by the federal cabinet. Or sometimes the bill will have, say this bill comes into force on January 1st, 2026. There could be a date. Once it's in force, any individual, any group in Canada can challenge it in court. And that could be done by, you could have different groups challenging different provisions. There are some groups that are very upset about the provisions pertaining to refugees and immigrants, and they might challenge it on that basis. There'd be other groups like ours that would be concerned about the privacy violations, criminalization of cash, surveillance powers, warrantless access. So you have different groups challenging it on different grounds. And, but, it's better to cut it. It's better to cut it off at the knees and just like, don't have the bad legislation passed in the first place.
Absolutely. I want to briefly switch gears because you're also the author of a new book Corrupted by Fear, How the Charter Was Betrayed and What Canadians Can Do About It. Now, without giving up the details or giving any spoilers on the interview, what can Canadians do about the seemingly routine charter violations that we're living through these days?
Yeah, I do have an action plan in. So, Corrupted by Fear is available on Amazon. It's about citizen engagement. It's about changing the culture. It's about teaching our children and grandchildren to appreciate the free society. It's about getting to a point where the majority of Canadians really understand with their minds what the rights and freedoms are and cherish in our hearts, that we recognize that our free and democratic society is superior to fascism, communism, National Socialism, theocracies, so on and so forth. And this is an appreciation. A lot of Canadians, sadly, they're ignorant of history, and they don't really understand the importance of freedoms of expression, religion, conscience, association. So we have to change the culture. We have to be engaged in the democratic process. We have to let go of this victim mentality where people say, oh, we got this horrible school board is promoting this harmful transgender ideology, and we're such victims. It's like, no, you're not a victim. Run for school board, roll up your sleeves, get to work. You might fall flat on your face the first time that you run, but you'll learn from it. But, we're not victims. We can remove politicians from office if they pass bad laws, but we've got to change the culture to get more and more Canadians to appreciate freedom.
Yeah, I think if Canadians can get more involved in the process, we'd all be better for it. Mr. Carpe, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you once again for joining me. And the title of the book, once again, which you can find a link to on Amazon in the description of this video, is Corrupted by Fear, How the Charter Was Betrayed and What Canadians Can Do About It. A reminder that if you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe to my YouTube channel, sign up for notifications, and be sure to like this video. Take care, and thank you for watching.